Hello and welcome again to One Starfish, where our mission is to change the world one starfish or one person at a time. If we can help change one life together, we can help change the world. As always, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, share, all the stuff. That's what gets the word out. I'm really excited for our guest today. She's actually a recommendation to me for one of my good friends, Andy. Her name is Kinsey Ray, and she's in Utah, and she's running a couple businesses. One is Happier Days brand. I'll let her describe a little bit more about it. And then the Mermaid Gang, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see her hair. It's gorgeous. It's about hair and online marketing, but she actually transitioned from modeling to the business world about 7 years ago, which is, to me, a pretty big change, which is pretty cool. So welcome to the show, Kinsey. Great to have you.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I love the one starfish, changing one life at a time. That's so impactful. I love it.
Thank you. So let's get into stuff. So tell us a little bit about, we're going to go back and go forward. So you first of all, explain Happier Days, and then that'll explain why we go back and go forward. So tell us a little bit about Happier Days and what your mission is and what you're doing with that.
Yeah, so right now I'm actually the current title holder of Mrs. Utah International. So that has really spearheaded this Happier Days mission. I've really been promoting the quote unquote Happier Days mission for over a decade now, but just recently I gave it a name and I gave it a brand to really hope to make an even bigger impact. So the Happier Days mission stems from my experience with self-harm as a teenager. And after I went through that experience, it was incredibly devastating, incredibly isolating, lots of shame, lots of embarrassment. I felt super alone in that experience that I knew ever since I went through that and healed from it. I knew I needed to talk about it. I knew I needed to step up and be the one to start this conversation. Because self-harm, quite frankly, it's not talked about. It's a very taboo subject. I know it makes a lot of people uncomfortable. It's a heavy topic, but it's a prevalent problem. A lot of people don't know this, but 1 in 6 girls will struggle with self-harm. Wow. And it's 1 in 9 boys. So it's alive and well today, unfortunately. And my mission of Happier Days is not to just bring awareness to it, because in my opinion, awareness only does so much. Okay, we're aware there's a problem. Now that my Happier Days mission is really focusing on the solution. I have a podcast. I just launched my new ebook where I teach people how to create positive emotional coping skills to navigate life's challenges in a healthy way, and also use those same tools to then become the best version of themselves.
Wow, that's so cool. So tell us a little bit about, like, as a child, why do you feel you went down a self-harm journey, and how did you get over it?
Yeah, that I really feel that we are not equipped with the right tools to handle very human emotions. And this is something that I dive deep in on my ebook, is understanding emotions. Because I remember being 15 years old and the want to fit in, not feeling cool, not feeling good enough. Then you add on some kids that are rude to you because kids aren't very nice and they say mean things. And I didn't feel like I was enough. I didn't feel beautiful. I didn't feel like anybody liked me. And then you add in the hormones of lovely teenagehood and growing up in puberty. And then I had my first experience with depression at the same time. And so you combine all of these really intense, really heavy emotions that are perfectly normal, and you give them to a 15-year-old that doesn't know what to do with them, doesn't know how to handle them. And I turned to a negative emotional coping skill that I learned through my friend. The interesting thing about self-harm, as I've educated myself on it over the years, is it's actually contagion. And that's why it spreads so quickly, because people learn about it through their friends, they learn about it through social media, and they say, oh, if my friend is struggling and turning to this form of help, if you will, maybe it will help me too. And that's exactly where my mind went. One of my good friends was going through a hard time. She was self-harming. I started feeling some emotions. I'm like, oh, she's doing that to help. This is the solution. Okay, let me do that too. Not realizing the permanence of my decision, not realizing the extreme damage and problems it would cause on the other side. And so just not having the right tools to navigate those emotions in a healthy way was absolutely the issue. And that's what I'm trying to educate people on. Let's teach our kids how to handle these very human emotions. There's nothing wrong with you if you feel sad or depressed or not enough, or you're going through grief. We will all experience that. Let's just learn how to handle these very human emotions in a healthy way.
Wow. How did you quit?
So, interesting piece about my story is my experience with self-harm was not very long. Um, I'm sure you haven't seen photos, but I have hundreds of scars all up and down my legs. And what a lot of people don't know is most of that happened in one night.
Wow.
And it kind of was a scared straight moment of where it was a poor decision and hundreds of
Like this
scars.
isn't all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah, it all happened at once, and the permanence and the reality of my decision was staring me right in the face. I can't take this back. I can't wear swimsuits now. I can't wear shorts now, or everyone will know. Because a couple times I'd done it before, I felt like I was being quote unquote smart, and this is what a lot of people do. They hide it under their clothes where no one can see, because there's a lot of shame in it. Don't want people to know. What will people think of me? And that's what I was doing in the beginning. Is I was like, oh, I want to wear shorts. I want to be able to go to the pool. I don't want my parents to find out. And then in one night, it was I went too far, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is permanent. I can't take this back. And so it forced me to realize the permanence of my decision and that I didn't want to keep doing that. Because after that, I wished and prayed every day for it to go away. So I didn't want to cause more.
Wow. What about your friend? Like, were you able to help her at that point, or did she go down the road farther? You're both kids at this time. How did that go down with like the peer group and what you were dealing with overall?
Quite honestly, I feel like as a 15-year-old not knowing how to deal with these emotions, I was not in a place to help her. I still didn't know what I had done, and it took me years and years after that for me to even understand what I did and heal from what I did and really process that. So I know she was going to therapy. I'm still friends with her on Facebook.
Cool.
She's doing great. But a lot of kids in school were dealing with that, and so none of us knew how to help each other. None of us knew what we were doing or why we were doing it. At least that's how it felt for me. I didn't know exactly why I was doing it or what was going on. It just became this out of control problem very quickly.
Interesting. And then from there, you got scared straight a little bit, I guess. And then you went into modeling, and modeling, from my knowledge, is also very hard on self-esteem for a lot of girls. How is that for you, and how did that fit into everything that you're doing? Now you're Mrs. Utah, which is super awesome. So you're still in that kind of world. And I feel that world, I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong. So a lot of people, I believe, think this, so correct us. But
Yeah.
I feel there's a lot of self-loathing. There's a lot of, not eating enough. There's a lot of like starving. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in that world that I've understood. And, how have you found that? And how have you been able to not go down that rabbit trail and help people?
Yeah, so becoming a model was such a pivotal point of my self-love journey and of becoming the woman I am today. Because after my struggle with self-harm, it was about 6 months later that I got scouted to be a model. And I instantly was crushed. I was like, you blew it, girl. Like, before you even had a chance, you blew it. Models are supposed to be perfect. You have these scars all over your legs. Like, I saw the dream, I saw the vision, I wanted it, but instantly like counted myself out because of all the scars on my legs. And I kept that story alive for several years. You can't do this, you're not beautiful, you're not capable, all of these things. Until one day I finally said, well, why not you? All you have is the lack of pigment on your skin. You have the body type, you're tall, you got the face, they told you you're good enough to be a model, and you're just counting yourself out because of the lack of pigment on your skin. That's all a scar is. And so I finally decided to switch that mindset. Instead of saying all the reasons why I couldn't do something, and I hope those of you listening see yourself in this story? It doesn't have to be modeling. What are you counting yourself out on?
Mm-hmm.
All the reasons why we can't. And I finally just decided to challenge that story and say, why not you? The only reason you need to pursue this is you're a living, breathing human who still has time left on this earth. Why not? And as soon as I switched that story, I started making progress in the modeling industry. I realized the person who cared the most about my scars was me. And I went on to go win international bikini contests. I walked in New York Fashion Week, magazines, billboards. Like, I did the thing despite all the scars on my legs. And so I didn't actually, and up until the point of me kind of making that shift, yes, I struggled with my self-esteem. I had so much shame around my scars. But after I made that shift, stepping into that career gave me so much self-esteem. It gave me so much power of realizing my scars didn't have to define my future. I could still be anything I wanted to be. And that's really what's fueled my Happier Days mission, is once I realized that in myself, that it was just my story holding me back. And this one decision when I was 15 didn't have to dictate the rest of my life. That's where I got this fire in me. I'm like, other people need to know this. Other people need to know their past doesn't have to define their future. It's all in the story you tell yourself. So, do I agree that yes, the modeling industry has its toxic traits, and there's women doing crazy stuff to try and fit the size and fit the cookie cutter? And yes, the modeling industry has its own toxic ways. That's why I eventually stepped away from it. It fulfilled its piece of my life purpose and helped me evolve in a season of my life. And then I transitioned into the business world. And now, as I, call it 10 years later, that now I'm in pageantry. This is my first pageant I've ever done. I'm like, oh, this is kind of like being a model again. This is very interesting. But the thing that I like about pageantry is it's not just, okay, you're beautiful and the hair and the makeup and the outfits like modeling. The way they choose people who win these pageants is they want to know what they're actually doing to make a difference. The modeling world didn't really care about my story, if you will, around self-harm and Happier Days. The pageant, it's fueling this story to go make a difference and go make a change. And so it's a really cool shift in what is prioritized, in my opinion.
Okay, so this is really interesting. So maybe it's going to be controversial, but you said everything's open, so I'm excited to go here. So now you transition, because modeling, for a lot of women, like I've never been a model, but I hang around a lot of people and they're like, oh my gosh, I could never be a model. Like, and they put that group of people in a separate box. I used to do this. So I don't anymore, but I used to, where I was like, well, like I can't talk to them. They're above me. They're better than me, blah, blah, blah. But here's the thing. I also sometimes wouldn't see them as business people. So as you transition from modeling to business, what kind of jumps did you have to jump through? Did everyone's like, oh yeah, girl, you got this? Or did you have people that were like, why don't you stay where you're good at? Like, what did you have for negativity to deal from going from that into the business world, which for a lot of people, they separate the two?
I'm so glad you asked this, because me and my business partner, we have talked about this so much. So I modeled with my business partner back in the day in our modeling careers, and then we both transitioned over into this business together. And it's interesting because everyone does have a perception. They put you in this box, and that was one of my favorite compliments I would get in my modeling career, and still to this day, is people would meet me and they're like, you're so nice, you're normal,
so nice.
You're down to earth, like you're a regular human. I'm like, yes, I'm normal. Like, I promise we can be friends. It's okay. Like, we can talk. It's funny, the pedestals and perceptions, like what people put you in. It's really silly. But me and my friend talked about this, because when I started my business and I would be looking for people to work with, people would instantly count themselves out because they weren't a model. I can't do what you do because I'm not a model. I'm not beautiful. I don't have these photos. Da, 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 da. And so they told themselves these stories as to why they couldn't be in business with me, because they perceived that it was easy for me because I was beautiful and a model and had this background. And I'm like, you don't realize it's so much harder for me because this is the story I keep getting from everyone is that they're comparing themselves to me and what I used to do, and now thinking that they can't do what I do now because they don't have the background of being a model. Like, no, you don't understand. I feel like this is kind of a hindrance on my side. Like, you could do really, really good.
That's so true. But like, and I'm thinking like, I know we got into, Mermaid Gang, it's hair and online stuff. Just curious, like, because I could see this, like you said, they get an image. And so you are beautiful and, all this. And honestly, everyone's listening, you all are beautiful.
Agreed.
So I think that's a huge thing. People like think a model is beautiful and no one else is, or, someone that wins a pageant or whatever, and no one else is. And that's not at all, may make me emotional, at all true. So if anyone's listening to this right now, guys, you're beautiful. Please believe that. And I know that Kinsey thinks that too. So, and it doesn't matter what we think, it's what you think. But okay, so when you go into a boardroom, where I could see the problem is if you go into I shouldn't say male dominated, it doesn't actually matter. It could be female, male, but I'm thinking a business circle, and you're like, who's this like model coming in and running a business? And having the respect, I feel like could have been a bit of a thing, but I could be completely wrong. Not like you can sell the product, you can do all that, because yes, you're a model, that's kind of what you do. But like to actually have the respect of like, I'm running a business, can we work together with business people, quote unquote, who also have an image? Did you have any struggles there? That's kind of what I'm curious about.
Yeah, and I just want to touch on what you said. I'm glad you touched on it. Like, we got to hone in on the beauty thing. Everyone is so beautiful, and that is the one thing I don't like about the modeling industry and the media is they try and just say only this is beautiful, and if you're not this, you're not beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest toxic thing about the modeling industry. And so everyone is beautiful, and that is like my biggest life mission is to let people see them through the lens that the world sees them, because everyone has unique beauty and unique powers and just unique gifts. So thank you for touching on that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I agree that I didn't have a lot of business experience when I started my business. I had branding and marketing experience because you have to know how to do that being a model. But when it came to business fundamentals, like how to run a business, those skills, I didn't have any. So I had a lot of ground to make up and really did feel like the underdog of I don't really have skills. And now looking back at the beginning of my journey, I'm sure I was perceived that way of like, girl, like
like if you went in for a loan or you went in for something, it's like, I don't know about you.
Yeah. So no one ever said it to me right to my face, but I'm sure that's how it was perceived because I struggled for the first 3 to 4 years of my business. And I believe it was because I was learning how to be a business owner and had to prove to other people, you can take me seriously.
You weren't just pretty on the outside, you're actually smart.
Yeah. And so I don't think I ever viewed myself that way because I know I'm such a hard worker. I know I'm more than a pretty face, but I believe that I did have to prove myself and my work ethic and my consistency and my commitment that no, I really am starting a business. I really am a businesswoman and I'm going to show you that. And so I do feel like it took 3 to 4 years of people really going, oh, okay, yeah, I now see her in this. She's an entrepreneur. She's a businesswoman. She's smart. She's educated. Like she knows what she's doing. And so it took a few years before I really feel like I did get that respect, even though I never really directly felt disrespected, if that makes sense.
Totally makes sense. And that's kind of what I was thinking, because that's just like I said, what I personally probably would have thought of. I've had a lot of growth, but like 3, 4, 5 years ago, probably would have thought that way. So that's why I'm like, I know a lot of people that do think that way and put people into boxes, period, whatever the boxes is. And then they try to jump out of the box. And it's like, I don't know where you're going. But anyway, as you went through that, what were some tips that helped you go through some of the struggles in all the careers that you've done, in the modeling, in the business world, all that stuff? What are some things that get you through the days where maybe you feel like quitting, you won't feel like giving up? I'm sure you've had it. You said the first 3 or 4 years were pretty tough. What were some things that got you through those dark days?
Yeah. And I think the first thing I want to say is everyone has the permission to pivot. And that, I've pivoted into some very different roles. So I went from modeling to then being a business owner and now into pageantry. And I'm sure people are like, what what is this girl doing? Now doing a podcast and an ebook. And I don't think that we're destined to just be in one box forever, like you said. But I know from experience, when you're quote unquote in this box or been in an industry for a period of time, you feel like you can't leave. The thoughts of, well, what are people going to think if I write a book? Well, what are people going to think if I decide I want to post on social media? Well, what are people going to think if I want to do a pageant, or I want to go do a photo shoot and be a model, or I want to be a business owner? Like, what are they going to think? I've been this way for so long. I feel like that fear of the judgment of what other people are going to think if you quit your job or leave your company or change careers or quit everything and go move to the wilderness and go have a alpaca farm, like whatever. We feel like we can't because we're so afraid of people's judgments. And like this quote or thought that just keeps coming through my mind is, you have permission to pivot. You have permission to grow and evolve and understand all of these new pieces of yourself. There are so many pieces of you and skills that you haven't even uncovered yet. Go run the marathon, go start the podcast, write the book, write a blog post, see if you like it. And if you don't, guess what? You can pivot again. So a big tip is just giving myself that permission that try it on for size, do a pageant, anything can happen. You never know. Maybe I fall flat on my face and it's silly, or maybe I win and it's the next era of my evolution. Who knows? But you're never going to know unless you try. And then something that just has helped me not quit on the hard days, because that's inevitable in business. So if that's you right now and you're in a rough season, you're in the suck season of just grinding it out and feeling like nothing is working. For me, it's just remembering that great things don't happen overnight. And I think we forget that, especially in this social media day and age. It's so easy to look at people online and go, they're crushing it. I'm behind. They're doing so many things. Oh my gosh, I need to get it together. Things need to move faster. Why isn't it working for me? It's working for them. But you didn't see the years of work. You didn't see the hours they put in to now have this momentum or now have all of this stuff happening. And that's usually how it works. You put in so much effort on the back end where it literally feels like nothing is happening, or you're moving backwards, or it's all wasted and you're spinning your tires, or it's these little tiny micro steps of invisible progress. And it can be so discouraging, but then it feels like everything happens at once. I'm in that season right now with like my Happier Days mission. I was like doing the grind of like, okay, let's get the ebook out and the podcast out and doing all of this stuff. And it kind of felt like I was getting no traction. And now just like in the last couple of weeks, there's podcast interviews and speaking opportunities and like so many things coming my way. I'm like, there it is again. Just that trust of knowing every little decision pays off, even when it doesn't feel like it in the moment. And also just understanding that why and that end goal. Like, what are you playing for? And I said this on a podcast the other day, but if you're really not willing to give something 5 years of commitment, you probably shouldn't do it. Because I think we have these unrealistic expectations of, I'm going to start a business and in 6 months it's going to be a success and I'm going to go viral on the internet and everything's going to explode. Okay, like maybe that'll happen. I'm not saying it can't, and I hope it does for you. But the reality is you need to give something an honest at least year. But truthfully, I feel like it takes a year to learn anything. And then give it a solid 3-5 years to let that learning and the growth compound and really turn into something. Me and my husband have this like 5-year check-in that every 5 years when we're working on something, we check in. Okay, am I happy? Am I satisfied with the results? Do I want to keep going? And if we are, great, we keep going. If we aren't, great, okay, you put in your time and you can pivot. But I feel like anything less than that, it's a disservice to yourself.
So good. How do you feel associations play a role in growth?
As far as the people you know? Oh, it's everything. It's everything. It's all about the network. I feel like we hear it all the time. Your network is your net worth. But I don't think a lot of people take it seriously. My husband's actually reading a book right now. It's called Who, Not How. And the concept is you're one person away from that connection you need to help you move your business forward. I feel like hiring mentors, hiring coaches, getting in the mastermind groups like Arate, or attending the conferences like Women in Business. We were talking about this before the call. It's so powerful. I attended Women in Business. I met Andy. You're in Arate. You met Andy. And now we got connected because we both know Andy. We wouldn't have been connected otherwise. And so it's so important to go be friendly, go say hi, go make connections, put yourself in the rooms that make you uncomfortable, because that's where you're going to grow. Not only as a person, but you're going to grow in friendships, in your network. And you never know, if you met someone 5 years ago that they have a certain business, you're like, oh, that's cool. 5 years later, you need that business. And you've built that relationship, you've stayed connected, and now you're not like, oh, I need this resource and I don't know where to find them. No, you have someone because you've been building the network.
So good. And a lot of people are like, but, I don't want to lose my friends. And like, I can't, like, what do I do there? I'm sure your friends have dramatically changed throughout your careers. How did you feel about that? How did you handle that? That whole concept of like, but I don't want to ditch my friends, but that's what happens when you start to change and grow.
Yeah. And my favorite concept around this is understanding you didn't ditch anybody. They had the opportunity to grow with you and they chose not to. And it's hard. I've grieved a lot of friendships. I'm sad we don't talk all the time. I miss who you are. I miss our season of life together. But that's it. As I've realized, a lot of people in your life, they're just there for a season. So love the people in your life while they're there. Make the memories. Like, enjoy it while it's here, because the only guarantee in life is change. And people in your life are going to change. You're going to change. You're going to outgrow people. People are going to outgrow you. And that's okay. Soak it up while they're here. Make the most of it. But I've grieved a lot of friendships, but it's never in vain. I've never lost someone without gaining a new level of influence or gaining new people into my life, and knowing, hey, that person is still alive, they're still well, I wish them well, there's no hard feelings. I just understand everyone has their life path, and not everyone's going to stay in my life forever, and that's okay.
That's good. I love that. And wrapping up, I always have 3 final questions, and then anything that we would love to leave the listeners with that we didn't touch on that you really think they should listen to. First final question is, if someone's looking for their purpose, what's one sentence you would say that could help them find it?
Be still. We have so much internal knowledge and internal wisdom. And I believe if you can get quiet and be still and sit with yourself and ask the question, the answers will come to you.
So good. Second one, what's a favorite quote and why?
Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are correct. That has been the guiding force of my life, and I've seen it work on both sides. So dare to think you can, because anything can happen.
And last one, what's one word or sentence you want on your gravestone?
That's a good one. You're making me think deep, right? What came to mind? Intuition, that just inner knowing, is be kind. Just that, like, my final reminder, like, they can live beyond me as people walk by. Just be kind to fellow humans, please. We're all doing the best that we can out here.
I love that. All right. So you run into someone in Starbucks or coffee shop, whatever, and they're like, hey, Kinsey, that was awesome. You know, working a lot of that stuff. What's something that we didn't touch on today that you just think we should have touched on?
I think just believing that you are worthy of great things and not comparing yourself to others. We touched on it a little bit, but if I can just like drive that point home of not comparing yourself to the models on social media, not comparing yourself to me or Angela or people that you look up to, because they're probably on chapter 10 and you're on chapter 1. And I think we count ourselves out because we compare ourselves to others, and it's not fair. I believe every person here is here for a purpose. You are here for a reason. This is not a mistake. And too many people are too busy focusing on other people's lives and comparing themselves to other people's lives instead of just going to work on their own. You would be surprised if you just went to work on yourself and went to work on your habits, how much progress you can make. And you will see you are so much more capable than you are giving yourself credit for. But it takes doing the work. And I think a lot of people are scared of that. They're scared to lose friends. They're scared to change old patterns. They're scared to jump out of the box. But why not dare to see what's on the other side and what you're made of? 15-year-old me could have never, ever fathomed that any of the things that I've done were possible. But I'm thankful I didn't let one experience in my life get me to stop trying for the rest of it.
So good. I love that. All right, guys, in wrapping up, as always, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, share, all the stuff. Let's go out there. Let's change, one life or one starfish at a time. All of Kinsey's information, by the way, will be in the show notes. So reach out to her if you have any questions, check out her ebook, all of that kind of stuff. We'll have all of that available in the show notes. But yeah, let's go out there. Let's change one starfish or one life at a time. If we can do one life and help one life at a time together, we can change the world. Thanks for being on.
Awesome. Thank you so much.